Patreon.com/the Walk Off Podcast. $4 a month gets you in there.
Let's take a quick left turn here because I'm curious what the approach was for your department after that devastating collapse in game 2 of the wild card. I felt like the fan base pretty much needed a mental performance department after that one. How do you turn such a disappointment into a learning opportunity and a chance to move the organization forward?
Yeah, it's a good one. And I imagine there are people, listening to this and wrapping their heads around that and knowing that, will have some historical context too as they look at the Blue Jays over the decades. Truth be told, in the moment, a gut punch. You care so much about players, care so much about staff, and the relationships are real and intimate here. And so to see the team, not succeed on that particular night, it hurts. But I believe these moments are inflection points. These are moments where people will figure out what their explanatory style is, what went wrong, how can we get better? And, from an MP department, we always focus on the controllables, which are looking internally. What can we do? There's a cliche, and the cliche is it's winning and learning, not winning and losing. And that's an industry cliche in sports psychology, but I think it's a truism. I think it's only failure if you believe it to be failure and interpret it as such, as a defining moment where it didn't work out, that's going to have long-lasting impacts. However, our department would view it as just a data point. It's a data point in this team's journey, in this team's story. You have a core group returning. And what are the things that we need to know and learn from that experience? What are some of the external solutions that would address the needs that we have? And what are the internal solutions for the players that are returning to be better and to realize the margins are often very small between winning and losing?
Yeah, isn't that the truth?
Mm,
It's just like microscopic.
mm.
Sports is such a copycat industry. Whenever something's working, everyone seems to get on board. So I am curious, how much do you kind of look at what other organizations are doing and when something is working, think to yourself, could we use this here? And do you have any examples of that?
Oh, that's really good. That's really good. And I think, any good practitioner is going to look around and see what best practices are or industry standards are. I think it's really, really important to have cross collaboration, collegiality. However, I do think within that, it's really important to have a real core identity of the things that you do and you do well, and that you can crush. I think it would be foolish, knowing the pace of progress on a number of fronts. In our world, there's biofeedback, there's neuroscience, there are a number of things of virtual reality and VR caves and all kinds of toys and different things that are out there. So we try to stay true to a lot of the things that we do, but we also try to do workshops and quote unquote upskill on certain things. So for instance, an example of that would be, a breath work. Our group, our whole team did workshops in the off season to understand what breathing patterns and proper breathing technique can actually mean for nervous system regulation. It turns out that when you put certain players in these highly charged competitive environments night after night, that nervous system is lit up like a Christmas tree. And is that sustainable long term, or are there ways to figure out how to downregulate a nervous system, how to upregulate a nervous system for a player that may be tired or experiencing fatigue, but is in the lineup and still needs to be really, really sharp? So we saw breath work as something we could upskill on. And, it turns out there's a long history of that out there. And that's something that we've been working with players for a while.
Is the breath work, is that something that would happen in the clubhouse before the game? Is this something that happens in the on deck circle or in the batter's box? Like, at what point does this breath work get implemented on game day?
That's Man, it's such a really, really good question because, obviously players have their prepare, compete, and recover within the Blue Jays. And during that preparation time, there is downtime for us to build out a breathing practice with guys. One, self-awareness. What are my patterns and where do I hold my breath? And then two, how do I find ways to access it, get a little bit more centered and grounded in what I'm doing? But how is that portable and all terrain? How do you take that into performance when it goes sideways? When I need it most, when I'm on the mound and the umpire is squeezing the strike zone and I know I'm bringing it and I'm pissed.
Yeah.
And now I don't know what a strike is. Um, yes, being able to bring that in between pitches, knowing there's a pitch clock now that has reduced that time. What used to be 15 seconds, and we had, our win the 15 program. So between pitches, what are the things you can do to get your mind right and bring full intent to everything you're doing?
That was gonna be my next
Intent.
question.
And so to be really, really purposeful with your movements, that's difficult to do in a game that has so much discontinuous action. So now we've got a shortened pitch clock, and we're trying to find ways to take these practices and make them portable to the field. So when a guy's in a deck circle, they're working. As they're walking to the batter's box, they're able to use it. And then when they're in the batter's box, it's full send go time. But if it does go sideways, if I've lost my approach, or I've seen something I didn't expect, or I had a really, really weak swing on a ball, and I've somehow gotten out of my plan, I will find ways to work one full inhale and exhale to my technique to get me back to baseline as much as possible.
And is that breath work, is that more, like a mental impact, or does that have, like, a physiological effect as well?
Well, I think there's both. I think, we start with the physiological. I think why players enjoy breath work so much, especially certain styles that are very, very active, it's accessible for them. And you also reap immediate physical benefits. There's certain techniques out there that you can immediately feel differences in your body. It's happening at a somatic level. And there's research to show, what that can do with certain types of breathing where you're emphasizing the exhale, which will engage a parasympathetic response, which allows the body to relax. It allows the body to deal with maybe perceived stressors that are too much for the athlete. Um, Conversely, a little bit of hyperventilation, hyperoxygenation is going to create some alertness of mind, and you're going to feel some tingliness, and you're going to feel some acuity and alertness around what you're doing. And those things can be really helpful beyond, caffeine or some other things that a player may do to get those states of minds. Um, but how you interpret those signals on the mental side are absolutely vital. If you're perceiving, those body signals in a really, really good way as a sweet spot, that's going to allow the mind to really lock in on plan. Players often that get stressed or are experiencing what might be anxiety can go really narrow and internal. And it turns out that's not great for seeing velo at 98 coming out of a pitcher's hand. If you can get that focus narrow and external and really locked in on your plan, that's going to help a lot.